The homeless girl's bare feet left wet prints on the imported Italian marble as she tore through the sea of designer suits and haute couture gowns. Behind her, someone screamed. Ahead, the most feared man in Seoul stood at the altar, his hand extended toward his bride. Soo Min's lungs burned, but she didn't slow down. She had 30 seconds before the vows became permanent. 29. 28. Her torn jacket caught on a guest's Rolex, ripping further. She didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Because in her pocket, wrapped in a plastic bag to keep it dry, was the recording that would either save Joon Ho's empire or end her life. The security team converged. She saw their hands reaching, heard their shouts. 10 more steps. She lunged forward and grabbed the mafia boss's wrist with both hands, and her voice cutting through the wedding march. "Don't sign anything. Your bride is working for the Kang family." The guests gasped. Mina's perfect smile froze, and Joon Ho's dark eyes locked onto Soo Min's face with an intensity that could kill. What happened next nobody could have predicted. Hello friends, welcome to our story. Before we continue, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Also, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Seoul, Los Angeles, London, maybe Manila or Toronto. We love hearing from you. Joon Ho was 34 years old and had built his empire from absolutely nothing. He wasn't born into the Korean Mafia. He'd earned his place through intelligence, ruthlessness when necessary, and an ironclad code of honor that made him both feared and respected. He controlled territory across 3 districts of Seoul, owned legitimate businesses that laundered money through high-end hotels and exclusive nightclubs, and had his hand in construction contracts that shaped the city's skyline. His face appeared in business magazines, though they never used words like organized crime or syndicate boss. Instead, they called him a real estate mogul and nightlife entrepreneur. Reporters interviewed him about urban development and luxury hospitality. The public saw what he wanted them to see, but Joon Ho wasn't just ruthless, he had a code. 10 years ago, after his younger brother died in a gang war started by a rival family's treachery, Joon Ho had established an unwritten rule in his organization. You protect your own. He provided for the families of his men. He paid for educations, medical bills, housing. When someone in his network fell on hard times, they didn't end up on the streets. They had somewhere to turn. Joon Ho remembered poverty. His mother had died when he was 15, leaving him and his brother to survive in Seoul's underbelly. They'd slept in subway stations, stolen food from convenience stores, fought tooth and nail for every won. When his brother died at 23, Joon Ho swore that no one under his protection would suffer like that again. Now he was getting married. His fiancée was Mina Park, a beautiful 29-year-old woman from what appeared to be a prominent family with connections to legitimate business circles. She had the kind of polished elegance that turned heads. Designer clothes tailored perfectly to her frame, hair that never fell out of place, and a smile practiced to project warmth and sophistication. Everyone said they made a powerful couple. When they'd gotten engaged 8 months ago, whispers spread through both the legitimate and underground worlds. Joon Ho was solidifying his position, marrying into respectability, creating alliances that would protect his business interests. Their engagement photos had appeared in society columns. The headline read, "Seoul's most eligible bachelor off the market." Nobody knew the truth about Mina. Nobody except one person, and that person was Soo Min. Soo Min was 16 years old, though the streets had carved away any softness that number might suggest. She looked older in some ways. Her eyes carried the wariness of someone who'd learned that trust gets you killed, and her movements had the calculated efficiency of a survivor. But she also looked younger, small-framed and underfed, with the kind of thinness that comes from too many nights with nothing to eat. She'd been homeless for 3 years, since her mother died of an illness they couldn't afford to treat. Soo Min had no father listed on her birth certificate, no grandparents who claimed her, no aunts or uncles willing to take in a difficult teenage girl. Social services placed her in a group home first, then foster care. The first family treated her like a servant. The second family's older son had wandering hands and no conscience. After 6 months of that, Soo Min ran. Living on Seoul's streets meant learning a different set of rules. She slept in different places each night. Subway stations, 24-hour cafes where she could nurse one coffee for hours, loading docks behind shopping centers, PC bangs when she had enough coins for an hour of computer access. But her favorite place, the place she returned to whenever she could, was the abandoned section of the Lotus Garden Hotel. The Lotus Garden had been a luxury hotel once, 40 years ago. Now it was a half-demolished structure waiting for new construction that kept getting delayed by permit issues and funding problems. The ground floor was exposed to the elements, but the 4th floor still had intact rooms with doors that locked. If you knew which stairwell to use and how to avoid the security cameras, you could access it. Soo Min had found it 2 years ago. She kept a sleeping bag hidden under a pile of construction debris in one of the rooms. It wasn't warm, it wasn't comfortable, but it was hers, and it was safer than most alternatives. And the hotel was also where Soo Min had first encountered Joon Ho's world. She remembered the night clearly. She'd been 17 months homeless, 14 and a half years old, so hungry that her hands shook. She'd been digging through a dumpster behind a restaurant when she heard voices, angry, violent voices. She'd frozen, watching from the shadows as 3 men dragged a 4th into the alley. The man being dragged was bleeding. One of his attackers pulled out a knife. Then a car pulled up, and Joon Ho stepped out. Soo Min hadn't known who he was then. She just saw a well-dressed man who looked at the scene with cold fury and said 5 words. "He's under my protection. Leave!" The attackers had left immediately. Joon Ho had helped the injured man into the car, called someone on his phone, and arranged medical care with the efficiency of someone who'd done it before. Before he drove away, he'd looked directly at where Soo Min was hiding. She'd held her breath, certain he'd call the police on her for trespassing. Instead, he'd pulled out his wallet, removed several bills, and placed them on top of the dumpster. Then he'd driven away without a word. That money had fed Soo Min for 2 weeks. It had also bought her the winter coat that kept her alive through the next several months. She'd never forgotten his face, and when she'd later seen that face in a newspaper identified as Joon Ho, one of Seoul's underground power players, she'd understood. He was dangerous, yes, but he was also someone who protected people, someone who helped, someone who was one of the good ones in a world that had very few. That's why. When Soo Min overheard Mina Park's late-night meeting in the abandoned hotel, she knew she had to act. The Lotus Garden Hotel had been built in 1982 by a family that dreamed of 5-star elegance. For 15 years it succeeded. Foreign dignitaries stayed there. Business deals worth millions were negotiated in its conference rooms. Wedding receptions filled its ballroom with champagne and live orchestras. Then the 1997 financial crisis hit. The family lost their fortune. The hotel changed hands 3 times over the next decade, each owner promising renovations that never happened. By 2015 it was condemned. By 2018 demolition had begun. But in 2023, funding for the new development dried up. Construction crews abandoned the site mid-project. What remained was a skeleton, the ground floor stripped to concrete and steel, her upper floors increasingly deteriorating but still mostly intact. For Soo Min, the 4th floor was a sanctuary. The rooms still had their original dark wood paneling and tiled bathrooms, though the fixtures had been ripped out by scavengers. The windows were intact, offering views of the city lights that reminded Soo Min she was still part of the world, even if the world had forgotten her. She'd claimed room 412. She kept her sleeping bag rolled up behind a false panel in the closet. She stored clothes, all stolen or found, in a broken dresser drawer. She had 3 books she'd rescued from a sidewalk donation box, and she read them over and over by the light from the street below. The 4th floor had one more advantage. The stairwell gave her a clear view of anyone approaching, and there were multiple escape routes. She'd mapped them all. Fire escape on the east side. Service stairs on the west. If necessary, she could climb from her window to the 3rd floor balcony and disappear before anyone reached her room. This was where Soo Min first crossed paths with Joon Ho's organization. More than just that one alley encounter. The Lotus Garden sat in territory that technically belonged to Joon Ho. His men used it sometimes for meetings precisely because it was abandoned and off official records. Soo Min had learned to recognize the pattern. Luxury cars would pull up at irregular intervals, always late at night, always with men in expensive suits who spoke in low voices. She'd learned to hide when they arrived. She'd learned which rooms they used, mostly the old ballroom on the ground floor. She'd learned to be invisible. For 2 years it worked perfectly, as they never knew she was there and she never interfered with whatever business they conducted. Until the night Mina Park arrived. 3 months before the wedding, Soo Min had been caught stealing food from a convenience store. The owner had grabbed her arm, was calling the police, was shouting about prosecuting her as an adult. One of Joon Ho's men had been in the store buying cigarettes. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with a scar across his eyebrow and the kind of casual confidence that came from being backed by serious power. He'd stepped in, told the owner he'd pay for the food, paid for 3 times what Soo Min had tried to steal, actually. Then he'd handed her the bag and a business card with a phone number on it. "You ever need work?" he'd said. "The kind that doesn't ask questions about age or background. You call that number." Soo Min had nodded, too shocked to speak. She'd watched him leave, seen him get into a car where 2 other men waited. She'd heard one of them say, "Boss would have done the same thing. Kid looks like she hasn't eaten in days." Boss. Joon Ho. That was when Soo Min had understood. Joon Ho's influence extended beyond direct action. He'd created a culture. His people acted with the same code he did. They looked out for those with nothing. She'd kept the business card even though she never called. It sat in her pocket like a talisman, proof that somewhere in this cruel city there were still people who saw her as human. That's why when she recognized Mina's voice in the abandoned hotel's ballroom 3 months later, Soo Min's blood ran cold. It was a Thursday. Soo Min remembered because Thursdays were when the soup kitchen in District 5 served rice and stew instead of just bread. She'd eaten well that evening, relatively speaking, and had returned to the Lotus Garden just after 11 p.m. She'd been settling into her sleeping bag, already half asleep, when she heard the voices. At first, she thought it was the usual meeting. Joon Ho's men conducting business. She started to get up, to relocate to a different floor until they left. Then she heard Mina's voice and she froze. "Are you certain this will work?" A male voice, older with the rough edges of someone who'd spent years smoking. "Of course it will work." That was Mina, her voice carrying clearly through the damaged walls and floors. "Joon Ho trusts me completely. The poor fool is so infatuated. And he sees me as some kind of respectable prize. He has no idea what I really am." Laughter. At least 3 different voices. Soo Min's heart started pounding. She moved silently to the edge of her room, found a crack in the floor where she could see down to the ballroom. 4 people stood there. Mina in an elegant coat, 2 men in suits, and an older man who carried himself with authority. "The wedding is in 11 weeks, Mina continued. "June 15th at the Shilla Hotel's Skyview venue. 300 guests, all the major players from both legitimate society and the underground. It will be the event of the season." "And the documents?" one of the suited men asked, Already prepared. Mina pulled papers from her purse. As soon as we're married, these contracts become active. By law, half of everything Joon Ho owns transfers to joint ownership. His hotels, his nightclubs, his real estate holdings, half becomes mine automatically. Soo Min's breath caught. She pressed her hand over her mouth to keep from making a sound. Half is just the beginning, Mina said, and her voice was cold, calculated. During our honeymoon, I'll have him sign additional documents. He'll think they're standard married couple paperwork, insurance, bank accounts, the usual. But hidden in the stack will be a power of attorney giving me full control of his assets. The older man spoke. What about his organization? His men won't just accept a takeover. Mina smiled. Soo Min could see it even from above, sharp and cruel. That's where you come in, father. Father. Soo Min's mind raced. Mina's father was supposed to be a respectable businessman, according to the society columns. Once I have power of attorney, Mina explained, I'll freeze Joon Ho's accounts. I'll sign over key properties to the Kang family as investments. By the time Joon Ho realizes what's happening, the Kangs will control his territory and there's nothing he can do about it legally. I'll be his wife. The documents will all have his signature. What about his loyalty network? The other suited man asked. Joon Ho's built a reputation for protecting his people. They won't turn on him easily. They will when their paychecks stop coming, Mina said simply. When the safe houses close, when the protection money dries up. Men are loyal until it costs them something. We cut off the money and his empire collapses from the inside. The older man, Mina's father, nodded with approval. The Kang family has been trying to break into Joon Ho's territory for 5 years. He's too smart, too careful, but you, my dear daughter, you found his weakness. Every powerful man has one, Mina said. For Joon Ho, it's his dead brother. He's so desperate not to be alone again, so hungry for the family he lost. I gave him that fantasy. I played the perfect partner, interested in his work, supportive of his codes and rules. I made him think I understood him. She laughed, and the sound made Soo Min's stomach turn. He actually thinks I care about his pathetic charity work. All that money wasted on people who contribute nothing. Once I have control, that's the first thing I'm cutting. Those funds will be much more profitable in proper hands. For 10 more minutes, they talked. They discussed timelines, backup plans, but which of Joon Ho's men could be bought off. They talked about selling his properties, about legitimate businesses that could front the money laundering. And Soo Min, hidden on the 4th floor, heard every word. When they finally left, she stayed frozen in place for another hour. Her mind spun with the implications. Joon Ho, the man who'd left money on a dumpster for a starving kid, the man whose organization fed people and protected them, was about to be destroyed by the woman he loved. Soo Min looked down at her hands. They were shaking. What could she do? She was 16, homeless, with no credibility and no power. If she went to the police and said a rich woman is planning to defraud a crime boss, they'd either laugh or arrest her for wasting their time. If she tried to approach Joon Ho directly, his security would never let her near him. And even if she managed to reach him, why would he believe her? A street kid with a crazy story about his perfect fiancée? She needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. Soo Min pulled her phone from her pocket. It was a cheap model she'd bought with saved-up coins from 2 months of collecting bottles and cans for recycling money. The screen was cracked. The battery barely held a charge, but it could do one thing: record audio. The next Thursday, exactly 1 week later, Soo Min was ready. Over the next 8 weeks leading up to the wedding, Soo Min would learn things about betrayal, about power, about the thin line between protecting someone and destroying yourself. She would make decisions that put her life at risk. And she would discover that being invisible had one advantage. It let you get close to the truth. But all of that started with that first recording, with that first piece of undeniable evidence that would eventually bring her to this moment. Running through a wedding venue, her heart pounding, a mafia boss's entire future weighing on the cracked phone in her pocket. This is how an empire nearly fell. This is how a homeless girl became the only person who could save it. This is where our story truly begins. The Shilla Hotel's Skyview venue glittered with crystal chandeliers and 300 guests in designer labels. The wedding march swelled as Mina Park glided down the aisle, her custom gown trailing behind her. Every eye was on the bride, every eye except Soo Min's. She'd hidden in a catering truck that morning. It waited 3 hours in a storage closet. Now, as Mina reached halfway down the aisle, Soo Min was out of time. She burst from behind a flower wall, torn sneakers slapping marble. A woman screamed. A man grabbed for her. Soo Min twisted away, her small frame slipping through the crowd. "Security!" someone shouted. Joon Ho stood at the altar, hand extended toward Mina, a genuine smile on his face that Soo Min had never seen before, vulnerable, real. It made what she had to do hurt even more. Mina's expression shifted from serene to horrified. Recognition flashed in her eyes. The girl from the abandoned hotel, security guards converged. Soo Min lunged forward and grabbed Joon Ho's wrist with both hands. "Don't marry her!" Her voice cracked. "It's a trap! She's working with the Kang family!" The music stopped. A silence exploded through the venue. Joon Ho stared down at her, eyes sharp enough to cut. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows the truth." Soo Min's hands shook. "Please, just listen, 5 seconds." "Remove her!" Mina's voice was ice wrapped in silk. "This is clearly some disturbed—" "I have proof." Soo Min yanked out her phone, nearly dropping it. The battery showed 2%. Her fingers fumbled. "Please hold." She pressed play. Mina's recorded voice filled the venue. "Of course it will work. Joon Ho trusts me completely. The poor fool is so infatuated he sees me as some kind of respectable prize. He has no idea what I really am." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Soo Min watched Joon Ho's jaw tighten, his hand clench into a fist. By the time he realizes what's happening, the Kangs will control his territory. And there's nothing he can do about it legally. I'll be his wife. The documents will all have his signature. Mina's recorded laugh crackled through the speaker. "He actually thinks I care about his pathetic charity work." 5 seconds. That's all it took. Joon Ho's face went from warm to empty. Not angry. Emptiness was far more terrifying. He looked at Mina like she was a stranger. "Joon Ho, that's not—" Mina reached toward him. "Don't." His voice was quiet, lethal. "Don't say another word." He looked down at Soo Min and she saw something in his eyes that made her heart pound differently. Not gratitude, just cold calculation. "Who sent you?" "Nobody." Soo Min whispered. "I came because you helped me once. Now we're even." Joon Ho said nothing for a long moment, and then he turned to face the room full of shocked guests. Powerful people from both worlds who'd come to witness the event of the season. "The wedding is canceled." 300 guests sat frozen. Joon Ho's calm voice carried more threat than any shout. Mina's composure cracked. "Joon Ho, please, don't speak." His eyes remained on Soo Min. "You, explain everything." Soo Min's throat went dry. 300 pairs of eyes. Joon Ho's dangerous attention. The words scattered in her mind. "I overheard her at the Lotus Garden Hotel. She was meeting with the Kang family, her father and some men. They planned everything." "What people?" Joon Ho's voice was surgical. "The Kang family." Soo Min met his eyes. The wedding was designed to get you to sign transfer documents. Half your empire becomes hers automatically. Then during the honeymoon, she'd trick you into signing a power of attorney. Full control. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Joon Ho's men exchanged glances. That's insane, Mina's voice rose. This girl is disturbed. She's homeless, probably mentally ill. I have 8 weeks of recordings. Soo Min clutched her phone. Every Thursday night, you talked about freezing his accounts, selling his properties, cutting funding to his protection network. You said once you had power of attorney, you'd let the Kangs take his territory piece by piece. Mina went white, then red. You were spying. I was sleeping there. The Lotus Garden was my home. Soo Min's voice stayed quiet. I've been homeless for 3 years, but once I heard what you were planning. She looked at Joon Ho. He helped me once. I couldn't let you destroy him. When did I help you? 2 years ago. That's an alley behind a restaurant. You left money on a dumpster. Her voice cracked. That money kept me alive for 2 weeks. Recognition flickered across Joon Ho's face. Mina sensed the opening. Joon Ho, listen. Her voice softened into the gentle tone she'd perfected. I love you. We've been planning our future. This girl is trying to destroy us. Someone sent her, probably the Kangs themselves. Doubt flickered across Joon Ho's face. 8 months of trust versus 5 minutes of truth. Show me the rest, he said quietly. The other recordings. No! Mina's mask shattered. You can't believe this homeless child over me. I'm your fiancée. I've stood by you, attended every boring charity event. She stopped. Too late. Boring charity event? Joon Ho's voice went deadly soft. Mina's eyes darted to the exits. In the recordings, Soo Min whispered, you called it pathetic charity work. You said the money was wasted on people who contribute nothing. You said cutting the funding would be the first thing you'd do. Joon Ho turned to face Mina fully. Not anger in his expression, something colder. A man reassessing everything. 10 years, he said softly. I've spent 10 years helping people because my brother and I lived on those streets. Because I remember being powerless and hungry and invisible. His hands clenched. And you called it pathetic. I didn't mean, yes, you did. He looked at Soo Min, then his security team. Get her out. Find me Mina's father. I want to know exactly who I've been sharing my life with. Security guards moved toward Mina, but Soo Min barely registered it. The adrenaline drained away, leaving her shaking. She'd done it, but now what? Joon Ho stood motionless at the altar, processing everything. The recordings, the betrayal, the collapse of his future. Soo Min recognized that look. She'd worn it herself 3 years ago. 3 years earlier. Soo Min was 13. Her mother had been dead for 2 weeks. Through the car window, Soo Min watched their apartment disappear, the place where her mother had worked 3 jobs. The Kim family is very nice, the social worker said. You'll have your own room. Nice families didn't take in 13-year-old girls unless they wanted something. The Kims wanted a maid they didn't have to pay. Soo Min lasted 4 months before she ran. Better hungry and free than fed and trapped. The streets taught her trust no one, ask for nothing, serve it. She learned which subway stations stayed warmest in winter, or which managers looked away when she slept behind dumpsters. She learned invisibility, the most valuable skill a homeless kid could have. Then came the night that changed everything. 2 years ago, Soo Min was 14, starving. 3 men dragged a 4th into the alley. The man was bleeding. One pulled a knife. Soo Min pressed herself against the wall. Street rule number 1, never get involved. Then a black car pulled up. A well-dressed man stepped out. He's under my protection, the man said. Leave. They left. The man, Joon Ho, helped the injured man into the car, made calls, arranged care with practiced efficiency. Before driving away, he looked directly at where Soo Min was hiding. She held her breath. Instead of calling police, he pulled bills from his wallet and placed them on the dumpster, then left without a word. As Soo Min stared at the money for 5 minutes. No one just gave things away, but he had. That money bought food for 2 weeks, the coat that kept her alive through winter, and something else, a crack in the wall she'd built, the smallest possibility that maybe some people still helped. Soo Min looked at Joon Ho and saw that same man, older, harder, but still someone who'd left money for a starving kid without expecting anything back. That's why she'd risked everything, because debt mattered. On the streets, you paid what you owed. Joon Ho finally moved. He walked past Mina being escorted out, past stunned guests, and stopped in front of Soo Min. She forced herself not to step back. Up close, he was intimidating. Tall, sharp-eyed, dangerous. "You saved me," he said quietly. "You saved me first, 2 years ago." Recognition flickered. "I remember. You looked half dead." "I was." Joon Ho studied her. She could see him reassessing everything. Mina's betrayal, his own blindness. A homeless teenager had seen what he'd missed. "You've been living in my abandoned hotel," Soo Min nodded. 2 years, room 412, I didn't have anywhere else to... You heard her planning to destroy me, and instead of using that information, you warned me. His jaw tightened. Why? Because of money on a dumpster? Because of a code about debts? Or because in 3 years of surviving on streets, she'd learned that the few people who helped deserved to be helped back? "Because you're one of the good ones," Soo Min said. "And there aren't many left." Something shifted in Joon Ho's expression. Pain. Recognition of a kindred survivor. "Come with me," he said. We need to talk." Joon Ho led Soo Min to a private room off the main venue. 2 of his men positioned by the door. Outside, chaos. 300 guests, Mina's protests. "Sit," Joon Ho said. Soo Min sat, phone clutched in both hands. The battery blinked red. "You said you have 8 weeks of recordings. I need to hear all of it." "The battery will last." He pulled out his phone. "Play them. I'll record on mine." Soo Min's fingers trembled as she found the files. She pressed play. Mina's voice filled the room. "Are you certain this will work?" An older male voice. "Of course. Joon Ho trusts me completely. The poor fool is so infatuated." Joon Ho's jaw clenched. "Her father." For 12 minutes they listened. Mina's father explaining legal documents, and Mina laughing about boring charity events. The lawyer detailing how the power of attorney would be hidden. The business partner discussing which properties to sell first. "By the time he realizes what happened, I'll control everything. The hotels, the restaurants, and especially that precious foundation of his." Joon Ho's hand curled into a fist. Rage filtered through years of discipline. She played the second recording. The third. "All that money going to waste on poor people, I'll put it to much better use." The door burst open. Mina stood there, security struggling to hold her back. Perfect makeup smeared, eyes wild. "Joon Ho, please, whatever she's saying, it's lies." Joon Ho turned slowly. "Get out." "No!" Mina shoved past guards, stumbling, her dress caught, tearing. "You can't believe this street rat over me. I'm your fiancé. And I love you." "Love." Joon Ho's voice was dead. "I heard you calling my brother's memory pathetic. Laughing about the people I help. Planning to steal everything I built from nothing." He stepped toward her. "That's not love. That's not even good acting. She faked them. Edited the recordings, spliced my voice." "Stop!" Joon Ho held up his phone, showing the recording in progress. "I have them on my device now. Multiple recordings, 8 weeks of meetings, your voice, your father's voice, specific details about documents that actually exist. His eyes were ice. Don't lie to me. Mina's mask shattered. You don't understand. My family we were supposed to... She grabbed his arm. I can explain everything. You had 8 months of chances. You spent them lying. Please? Tears streaked her face. I'll do anything. I'll disappear. Just tell the Kangs it failed. The Kangs? Joon Ho's voice went dangerously quiet. Say that name again. Mina's mouth snapped shut. You just confirmed everything. Joon Ho looked at his men. Take her to the East office. Lock the door. I'll deal with her father shortly. He glanced at Soo Min. Find out who the Kang family sent to my wedding. As security dragged Mina away, her screams echoing, Joon Ho turned back to Soo Min. You risked your life for this, he said quietly. For me. Why? Soo Min thought about luck and timing and the thin line between success and catastrophe. But mostly she thought about money on a dumpster and the kind of person who helped without asking why. Because someone had to, she said. Joon Ho walked back into the main venue, Soo Min 2 steps behind. 300 guests waited. Security lined the walls, and the air crackled with tension. 300 pairs of eyes turned. Joon Ho strode to the front, his shoes echoing on marble. He moved past the altar, past elaborate flowers, past the officiant still holding his book. He turned to face the crowd. The wedding, Joon Ho said, his voice carrying through the silence, is cancelled. Gasps, shocked murmurs. Someone dropped a champagne glass. It shattered. Furthermore, Joon Ho continued, I want everyone to understand why. Security brought Mina in, her arms held firmly, her dress torn, makeup smeared, hair falling loose, nothing like the polished bride from 30 minutes ago. Let me go, Mina struggled. Joon Ho, tell them to release me. Joon Ho's expression didn't change. Bring her forward. They dragged her to the front. Mina's eyes darted around. Seoul's elite business leaders, politicians, influential families from both worlds, everyone who mattered, everyone who would talk. You wanted a spectacle, Joon Ho said quietly. You wanted headlines. Congratulations. He turned to the crowd, holding up his phone. What I'm about to play are recordings of conversations between my fiancée, her father, and members of the Kang family. The name Kang sent a wave through the guests. Joon Ho pressed play. Mina's voice filled the venue. Of course it will work. Joon Ho trusts me completely. The poor fool is so infatuated he has no idea what I really am. Gasps. Mina's face went white. By the time he realizes what happened, I'll control everything. All that money going to waste on poor people. Mina lunged for the phone. Stop it! That's taken out of context! Joon Ho held it away. Context, please. I'll explain to everyone. He actually thinks I care about his pathetic charity work. Mina's legs gave out. Security held her upright as she stared at the crowd. Every face showed shock, disgust, fascination. For 8 months, Joon Ho said, this woman pretended to love me, attended my events, met my people, listened to me talk about my brother, the foundation in his memory. His hands clenched. Every moment was a lie to steal everything I've built. No! Mina found her voice. I did love you. At first my family needed help. They were in debt to the Kangs, but then I really fell for you. Stop! Joon Ho's voice was ice. I heard all 8 recordings every Thursday night at the Lotus Garden Hotel. You never wavered, never showed doubt. You laughed about my boring charity events, called the people I help worthless. He stepped closer. That's not love changing into greed. That's greed wearing a mask. Mina's face crumpled. Please, my father forced me. The Kangs threatened us. You had choices. You chose to lie every single day. He looked at the guests. I'm canceling this wedding and dissolving business connections with the Park family. Anyone with ties to them might want to reconsider. His eyes found uncomfortable faces. I'll investigate who knew about this plot. The venue erupted. Guests surging up, some rushing for exits, others pressing forward. Phones appeared, cameras flashing. This would be on social media within minutes. Mina collapsed, sobbing in her $1,000 dress, her perfect wedding, perfect plan, perfect mask, shattered in front of everyone who mattered. Joon Ho walked past her without a glance. He stopped in front of Soo Min, who stood frozen, overwhelmed by the chaos she'd caused. "Come," he said quietly. "Let's get you somewhere safe." Joon Ho's penthouse overlooked Seoul. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed city lights spreading everywhere. Soo Min stood near the glass, trying not to touch anything. Everything looked expensive. 3 hours ago, she'd been living in an abandoned hotel. Now she was 40 floors above the streets. "Sit," Joon Ho said, gesturing to a leather couch. Soo Min sat on the edge, her torn clothes obscene against pristine furniture. Joon Ho poured water and handed her a glass. He sat across from her. "You saved my empire today," he said. "You risked your life to warn someone you barely knew. Why?" Soo Min sipped. "I told you. You helped me once. Money on a dumpster 2 years ago. That's why?" She met his eyes. "On the streets. But you learn who's dangerous and who isn't. Who helps and who hurts. You're dangerous but not cruel. That's rare." Joon Ho leaned back. "Mina thought I was soft, that my charity work was weakness." "It's not weakness," Soo Min said. "It's why your people are loyal, why they didn't turn when the Kangs offered money." Something shifted in his expression. "A 16-year-old homeless girl sees what I missed. But she didn't destroy you, because you built something worth saving." Joon Ho stood, walked to the window. "I want to offer you a way out of the streets permanently." Soo Min's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I have safe houses, resources." He turned. "You need education, documentation, medical care. I can provide it. In exchange, work for me." "Work how?" Street instincts screamed caution. "Oh, and I won't do anything illegal." "Not like that." He held up a hand. "Today proved my methods for judging character are flawed. You saw through Mina in 8 weeks. I couldn't in 8 months. I need someone who knows how to watch, listen, survive. Someone who understands the streets and the people I help. You want me to spy. I want you to tell me the truth about my organization, my people, my choices." Soo Min stood slowly. 24 hours ago, she'd been planning how to sneak into a wedding. Now one of Seoul's most powerful men was offering her a life. "What if I fail?" "Then you fail with a roof over your head, food, and a chance to try again." He extended his hand. "I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for loyalty. The kind you showed today." Soo Min looked at his hand. This was a door opening. And maybe the only door that would ever open, but doors could be traps. "I'm not good at trusting people." "Neither am I anymore," Joon Ho replied. "We'll figure it out together." Soo Min took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, steady. "Okay, I'll try. That's all I'm asking." He called someone. Minutes later, a woman appeared, professional, kind-eyed. "This is Minji. She'll get you settled tonight." As Minji led her toward a bedroom, Soo Min looked back. Joon Ho stood by the window staring at his city. He looked tired, older than 34. He'd almost lost everything today, almost married someone who would have destroyed him, because he'd stopped seeing clearly. Soo Min wondered if she'd just made the same mistake by trusting him. But for tonight, she had a bed. A real bed with clean sheets and a door that locked. For tonight, and that was enough. 3 weeks later, Joon Ho stood in his office at 2 a.m. looking at the city. 20 years ago, he'd been 15 and homeless. 10 years ago, he'd buried his brother. 8 months ago, he'd believed he'd found someone to share his empire with. He'd been wrong. The investigation had uncovered 3 more compromised people in his organization. He'd been blind, too focused on respectability to see the cracks. A homeless girl had saved him. The door opened. Soo Min stood there in clean clothes, holding papers. "You're still awake," she said. "So are you." She set the papers down. "I finished the foundation reports." Over 3 weeks, Joon Ho had given Soo Min access to his charity operations. Not the underground business yet, but the legitimate foundations. And 3 distribution centers are run by people who don't care. Oh, they're polite when inspectors visit, but I went as someone who needed help. They treated me like garbage until I said your name. Anger spiked. "Which ones?" She told him. He made notes, planning replacements. "You're good at this," he said. "Seeing what others miss. It's easy when you've been on the other side." Soo Min looked at the photo on his desk. "Is that your brother?" "Yes, 14 there. Dead at 23. "What happened?" "Gang war. Wrong place, wrong time." Joon Ho touched the frame. "He was better than me. Kinder. I built this because he didn't get the chance. He'd be proud of you." "Would he? I almost threw it all away. But you didn't. Because someone told you the truth." Soo Min met his eyes. "That's what I'm here for, right?" "Yes." "Then here's truth. You're not broken because Mina fooled you, but you're human because you wanted to believe someone could love you without wanting something." She walked to the window. "That's not weakness, that's hope. Don't lose that." Joon Ho studied this 16-year-old who'd survived 3 years on streets and somehow maintained enough faith to save a stranger. "How did you stay hopeful?" he asked quietly. "I didn't, mostly. But then I saw you leave money for someone you'd never met. Saw your men help a shoplifting kid. Heard you were different." She turned. "So I stayed alive long enough to see if it was true. And it's true. You're one of the good ones." A small smile. "Nobody's perfect. You're wise for 16. I'm wise for someone who almost froze to death last winter." She moved toward the door. "Get some sleep. Minji says you haven't slept properly. Minji talks too much. Minji cares about you. So do the others. You built that." Soo Min paused. "Mina tried to take your empire, but what you actually built, loyalty, trust, family, she couldn't touch that because it was never about money." After she left, Joon Ho sat in the quiet. Soo Min was settling in, learning, growing. Minji treated her like a younger sister. His men had accepted her. Loyalty recognized loyalty. She'd asked for little: education, safety, purpose. In return, she gave him honest perspective from someone who understood both worlds. Slowly, they were building something. Not the romantic partnership he'd thought he wanted, but something stronger. A chosen family forged from mutual respect and hard-won trust. It wasn't the future he'd planned 3 weeks ago, but maybe it was the one he needed. 6 months later, Soo Min stood in front of the mirror. Clean hair in a ponytail, tailored blazer, shoes that fit. She looked like she belonged now. But when she smiled, she saw the street girl, still there, still watching, just with better tools. "Ready?" Minji appeared. "Board meeting in 10. 6 months ago, Soo Min had been sleeping in an abandoned hotel, invisible. Now she made decisions affecting thousands of lives. In the conference room, Joon Ho listened to reports. The foundation had expanded, new centers, education programs, job partnerships. Soo Min had influenced everything. Her perspective reshaped how they operated. She stood to speak. "District 8 shelter works, but we need mental health services. Trauma doesn't disappear with a bed." She showed data. "We need staff who've experienced homelessness. They spot what we miss." Joon Ho watched with quiet pride. She'd grown formidable because of her past, not despite it. After the meeting, they walked through the facility. Families lined up for food. Kids attended programs. "Your brother would be proud," Soo Min said. "I think he'd be more proud of you." They stopped at a plaque. "In memory of those who protect others at cost to themselves." "Mina got 3 years, her father got 7, Joon Ho said. "Do you think about her?" "Mostly I think about how close I came to losing what mattered." He looked at Soo Min. "You saved more than my business, you saved my purpose, and you gave me a life worth living." "I want to expand your role," Joon Ho said. "Everything. And I need someone I trust to see what I miss." "The underground operations too?" "Everything. I'm 17. I was 17 when I started this." "Age doesn't determine wisdom. Experience does." "Okay, but we never stop helping people. We remember where we came from." "Agreed. And we keep telling each other the truth." Joon Ho extended his hand. "Deal." This was family. Chosen, earned, built on respect and purpose. Not blood, but something stronger. 3 years later, Soo Min, now 20, ran 5 foundation branches across Seoul. She'd earned credentials and become known as Joon Ho's most trusted advisor. Joon Ho's empire had transformed, cleaner, more focused on protection and support. The Kang family's influence had collapsed. On the anniversary of the wedding that never happened, they stood on Joon Ho's penthouse balcony. "Do you ever miss it?" Joon Ho asked. "The simplicity of before?" "No, but I remember what it felt like to have nothing. That's why I'll never stop fighting for people who are still there." Below, Seoul glittered. Somewhere in those streets, another homeless kid was surviving, hoping, waiting for proof that good people still existed. Tomorrow, Soo Min and Joon Ho would make sure that proof arrived. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who shows up, who protects, who tells the truth, who crashes weddings to save strangers, who leaves money on dumpsters for invisible kids. That was their foundation. Just 2 people who'd found each other at the exact moment they both needed saving, and built something worth keeping. Thank you for following Soo Min and Joon Ho's story. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share what part resonated with you most. Until next time, friends.